So like Melissa said, my name is Mason Auk. I'm a senior consultant with our content and process automation team. I'm also our yoga product owner for our yoga solutions. With me today is Nate Dean.
I am the senior manager of our cloud engineering team. We write code so you don't have to.
And today what we're going to do is we're going to run you through kind of a little bit of an overview and talk a little bit about what is out there in the AP automation landscape. So much has changed over the last few years with automation and the importance of automation when we're not in that office. From there, we're going to talk a little bit about how does yoga content meet those needs of that landscape. And then we're going to jump in and talk about some of the core features and benefits of the application as well. So let's talk, like I said, a little bit about what has happened and what's going on in this landscape. So many organizations are migrating from those on-premise version 10 Lawsons to those multi-tenant CloudSuite FSMs. We also have a lot of clients that are for the first time migrating to Infor as well. With these, as we move to the cloud, what we're finding is a lot of these AP automation solutions that some clients may already have are on-premise. So what we're having to do is we're having to move these on-premise elements off and bring them to the cloud, which is where our ERP is. It's very difficult to maintain these on-premise solutions and have in the cloud application as well. And right now, as we're moving to these ERPs, it makes sense to evaluate, does this on-premise make sense anymore? The other really important thing that has obviously happened is COVID-19. So what we saw with COVID-19 was that leaders have to really drive digital and cloud transformation projects to get these items out of those offices, to remove the dependencies on being in office and enable working anywhere remote. And with that, we have a massive advancements in AI and machine learning platforms with all of the major leaders out there with AWS, Azure, Google Cloud. And specifically, these applications are also starting to put focuses specifically on machine learning and AI for accounts payable, both in the invoice space, but also in the statement space and the payment space as well. So with all of this landscape that's happening, we're learning more and more about these machine learning OCRs, right? So we have had OCR in the past that could pick up regular text, right? And that's kind of just table stakes nowadays. When you're talking about what is out here in the landscape, being able just to pick off data from an invoice, that's 1990s, right? Right now, what we're looking towards more is these learning OCRs. So OCR that not only is able to pick up text, but it's also able to pick up handwriting. And on top of that, it's also able to go through and learn from that. So when we make a mistake on an extraction, that data is fed back into that learning OCR, and we're being able to pick up that next item. The other item about this is once we extract data from an invoice, until we actually apply that data to the master data that we have or the actual ERP that we're trying to integrate into, it's just data, right? And we have to take that data and make it usable to your business. So this is where a lot of AI, machine learning comes in, things along those lines. So once we've extracted that data, applying that type of learning to that, so that way we take just this data that we have and not only put it in a context of an invoice, but also start doing predictive items as well. So some big things that we'll talk about towards the end as well is things like predictive general ledger coding. So looking at and saying this invoice has been utilizing just this general ledger, my AP team doesn't need to stop and touch that. Or for our Infor specific clients, one of the biggest things we see right now is that invoice routing categories take a substantial amount of time to be able to pick for those invoices and then send them out to the actual approvers. So being able to help predictively pick that and remove one additional steps that our AP team has to touch helps us get down to that, at minimum, one-touch invoice, if not no touches. The other critical item that we have as well is that e-invoicing is coming, right? We have a lot of different countries that have been piloting programs for this. And with the US is also beginning to pilot their own programs. When this comes in, obviously, it's going to take a little time for some adoption here in the US, but we have to be cognizant because if you're making decisions for your organization on what applications you want to put in today, It needs to be prepared and ready for the next 5 to 10 years as well. And like I said, with a lot of our clients going to the Infor ERP up in the cloud, it's making it even easier than ever to integrate with those systems via web services and APIs, which gives us a great advantage to being able to directly control and integrate these invoices in and not just park them in some interface table that our teams have to work. So with all of that kind of happening in this landscape right now, our teams sat down, looked at what was in the market, looked at what our knowledge base was, and what we decided was we were ready to take on that next challenge and bring our own product to the market. So with that in mind, we came out with Yoga Content for CloudSuite FSM. So this is a SaaS native multi-tenant invoice processing solution. It's a lot of words, so what does that mean for you? Really what that means for you is that this tool is in the cloud, ready to be used by your team. So with this as well, we took all of these years of consulting that we have spent, both in the version 9, version 10, and now CloudSuite. And on top of that, we have worked with multiple different third parties as well to implement AP automation. So taking all of that knowledge together, we've now built this out-of-the-box integration with Infor CloudSuite, which is quick and easy to deploy. And on top of that, it goes just one step further with those bi-directional interfaces. So we directly interface into Infor. If there's an issue at that moment, we know specifically on that invoice that there's an issue, and we can notify you that way. We're not parking this in any interface table that then has to be worked by your team. That's one of the advantages for our consulting experience that we've had. We understand what happens in Infor, and we take everything we do one step further. And like I said as well, with Yoga Content as a whole, we talk a lot about these OCR solutions, right? But vendor and e-invoicing is coming. So being able to provide vendor portals, being able to provide vendor maintenance and management solutions, and then also a place for e-invoicing, taking EDI and making it even better. All of these type of things have to be cohesively thought about when we talk about a procure to pay and we talk about AP automation. It's not just OCR anymore.
Yoga Content architecture. So how do invoices come into Yoga Content? Well, they can come in using Yoga Connect Bridge, existing scanning software, ECM posting into Yoga Content via our RESTful APIs. They can come in via email capture, so the monitoring of an email inbox and then the sending of that data into Yoga Content. Coming soon, supplier and e-invoicing portal allows for vendors to submit, communicate, and check on the status of invoices and enroll in e-invoicing. So after that, those invoices are processed in Yoga Content, they post to Infor via the Infor Ion API gateway. That gateway also allows us to manage the accounts payable master data such as vendors, purchase orders, GL account info for invoice, data capture between Yoga Content and Infor CloudSuite FSM. So what does this automation look like at a high level? First is invoice capture. That's the scanned invoices and email invoices like we just talked about. Second is the intelligent data capture. That's the header data and the line item pairing and data validation that we do through both OCR and then that intelligent search of your Infor data that's synced to content. Then we have exceptions and workflow. So this is really the power of the UI of Yoga Content. We can process invoice exceptions, vendor exceptions, and manual reviews. This is both the automated and the manual touch points for the system. Then we send the invoice and the data to Infor, and we can do approval routing, that's notifications, exceptions, and invoice coding, and then to the invoice storage archive. Okay, what are the core features of Yoga Content? So Yoga Content is a multi-tenant software as a service solution built on Microsoft Azure. It is a web application. There's no need to download anything. You just hit the URL and you're there. We've got customizable workflow, forms, integrations, and automations. Self-learning invoice extraction combined with RPI managed vendor extraction models. What does that mean? It means that data extraction gets better over time. As we continue to process invoices, the system gets smarter. best practice real-time posting of invoices and images to CloudSuite via the API that we just mentioned. Quickly and easily build custom APIs and integrations with Yoga Connect. So this is where some of the power of this managed service comes in. Both the input and the output of Yoga content can be managed with our team's custom development and our Yoga Connect system. And then the premium support services that you get from our team of experts, both in account payable and development from the Yoga content team. Fully managed experience.
Thank you, Nate. With this as well, so when we talk about AP automation, it's more than just an OCR solution, right? AP automation needs to be able to handle all of the ways we ingest documents. So, like Nate said, we have that coming in paper, email, manual entry. But another really important item that a lot of clients sometimes forget is EDI. When EDI images come in to Infor through GHX or whatever partner you have, what happens is they come into that table, and if they are able to interface in, that's perfect. But what happens when they hit that interface table and they run into an issue? A vendor mismatch, an inbound rule is set up incorrectly, a line's now closed. When our end users try to sign in and look at that type of stuff, it's very difficult for our AP teams to be able to quickly identify what that issue is. A lot of times, our clients are having to sign into GHR, they're having to pull up those invoice images on another monitor, so now they're working in multiple different systems. So one thing we also talk about and include when we talk about AP automation is EDI Image Rendering. So image comes in just like it normally would through your normal Infor application, but what happens is we run jobs that then goes through and takes that data from the EDI, that's the untranslated EDI data, and mocks up these images that you can see right here. So for example, if line 3 was closed, when I'm trying to look at it here from the actual EDI file, that's really difficult to see what line 3 is. But when we mock up these images, we actually are able to look at that, identify exactly where that issue is, and then be able to resolve and fix those issues as well. So talking a lot about that AP automation is not just OCR anymore. But for those that do come in through our normal OCR, we do also have to be very cognizant of page separation. So we can tell vendors all day long, please include separate invoices, separate files, everything along those lines. We'll have about 90% compliance with a lot of our vendors, but you'll always have those 1 or 2 vendors that they're gonna send that one file that has 10 or 15 invoices in it. So the really, really important thing is to make a natively intuitive page separation application. So you can see here, it's very easy to click on what pages you want. You can either delete those pages right out, so if it's useless information that's not important, we can get rid of those pages. You can also split those documents and send them back to OCR, so that way not only are you able to separate out those documents, you're also able to get it running through OCR and hopefully touchless as well. With that as well, we have automatic email capture. So at minimum, all of your invoices should be starting to come through email capture. Paper is no-go anymore. We need to get rid of those paper, and we need to get, at minimum, all of our vendors compliant on email capture. And when we talk about email capture, I'm not talking about emails come into a mailbox, someone from AP opens up that record, and then puts it into the application. This is an unmonitored, automatic mailbox. Records come in, they hit OCR, they hit the intelligent data extraction. If they need to be touched by a resource, they stop and are touched and worked. Otherwise, that goes straight into Infor. That's the whole point of automation, is to remove those that don't need touches and then to highlight and create areas for us to work on those that do. For those that do come in through paper, we do also still have the ability to manually capture from disk as well. Once that is captured, what we're going to do is we're going to put that through intelligent extraction and validation. So like Nate has talked a little bit earlier, when we put these records into the system, they're going to be OCR'd, and then on top of that, we're going to put that with all of our data validation rules, everything along those lines, that while we do have out of the box that enforce best practices, we can also write specifically custom or configurable validation as well to help make sure that we meet your business where it's needed. And that's what helps us take all of this data and put it into context. Once we have it in context, anything that can go straight through does go straight through. Anything that needs to be worked enters our workflow management.
Thank you, Mason. So a lot of the heavy lifting that yoga content does is on the periphery, the ingestion and then the sending of that data to Infor. However, our users love our clean UI, the ability to quickly filter and sort their queue and view data so that they can work these invoices through the process from review to approval quickly. Okay, here is that same ease that the UI is bringing you as the users can work together to add notes to documents to form a note history as the document works through the review and approval system. So see, we have a note here that says, please reopen line 3 for PO number 2. That might be from some sort of a manager or approver. It allows the reviewer to go into the review queue and to remediate and then to quickly send it back on. So this user did not have to open their email inbox. They did not have to open their chat window. They were able to have this seamless experience within yoga content to really get this work done quickly.
For anyone that's been in the AP automation or AP space at all, you know that email that you get where there's 30 different people that CC'd on it and you're trying to figure out what happened with this PO, what happened with this invoice, how do we get this reopened, how do we process this invoice, right? And you have 30 people CC'd on it, so every single person's getting it clogged up in their mailbox. Sometimes people take ownership, a lot of times people don't take ownership, so it just goes into the void. This gets rid of all of that. It creates a collaborative work area that we can have those conversations. And on top of that, we also export all of these conversations into Infor as well, allowing Infor to be that single source of truth. So in a year from now, when an auditor asks you, oh, why'd you do this with this specific invoice? You have all of that comment history right there in Infor available for that auditor as well. With this as well, right, one of the most important things is automatic invoice line pairing. So we bring in that purchase order data from your Infor systems. And as these invoices come in, we match those up, we make sure that they pair, so that way your team doesn't have to touch those records. Keep in mind, we're talking about pairing here. Anything with the matching process, we still export that out to Infor, and you still will do your 3-way or 2-way matches with quantities, unit prices, anything along those lines still in the Infor application. With this as well, we do have out-of-the-box AP analytics and reports as well. So this is just a very small snippet of the reports that we offer, but it helps us provide some just basic insight into what's going on in your organization. We have document ingestion rates, documents per queue, so that way we can see when documents come in, where are they going, where do our teams need to work. We also have different ones that help you highlight the vendors that are sending in duplicate invoices, right? We want to be able to reach out to those vendors, address those type of items with them, and get them to change that process, so that way you guys aren't OCRing this 80 plus duplicate invoices a day. While your team doesn't have to work it, it still eats up your guys' page counts. And one of the most important things about yoga content is the premium support. So like we talked about in the landscape at the very beginning, we've had a lot of turnover in organizations, right? So this application is fully hosted and managed by RPI. So what that means is that we are proactively looking at the back end. We're watching those straight through processing numbers. We're watching the invoices that aren't matching vendors or aren't matching PO lines. And what's happening is our teams are either tuning intelligent capture models, or we're reaching out to you and saying, hey, we're consistently seeing that you have the same address underneath 2 different vendors. Or we're consistently seeing that you need this remit to stood up, and that's what's preventing these invoices from flowing through. So it's not only trying to improve that straight through processing, but it's also working with your team to make sure we're keeping data clean and making sure that we also are allowed to process these invoices quickly without any confusion. We do have baked in support for modifications and enhancements as well. We know the AP space, we know the challenges that our organizations are running across. It's either onboarding new hospitals, it's standing up new AOCs, things along those lines. Or it's, hey, I now need to have this new workflow to meet a requirement for XYZ, right? All of this is built in, so we're not coming out, we're able to just assist you and help you resolve those issues. This also really helps reduce risk related to turnover. So what we see with a lot of these on-premise solutions is, Bob's always handled this application. Bob knows how to run this. no one, he gets everything done that we need. But what happens when that Bob of the world leaves the organization or takes PTO or things along those lines? There's a lot of risk related to having one person being able to know these type of tools, where having a team that is available to assist you with that is really, really important. And about that team, all of our team is certified Infor CloudSuite and AP support specialists. So what does that mean? That means that when you ask for that enhancement, we can make sure does that enhancement meet best practice. We're constantly advising, working with you to make sure that you guys are getting not only the best software, but also the best service and the best procure-to-pay process available. With that as well, we are constantly iterating in our procure-to-pay processes. So today we talked through that AP Invoice Automation item. We've also just recently in Q3 released packing slip automation. This is a really big one, like we talked about. We're trying to look holistically to the procure-to-pay process. So bringing in more and more of these items that are utilized in that. Nate has talked about that vendor and e-invoicing portal. That's going to be going into Q4 and Q1 of next year. And then as well with that, that's going to help open up all of those applications where we want to do e-invoicing or our vendors need to be onboarded, things along those lines. And then as well, we're also working on machine learning for coding and routing. So we talked about one of those pain points is with the invoice routing categories. So going through and having to be able to pick those consistently is a major pain point and a process that involves our AP team. If we're able to predictively pick those invoice routing categories, we're able to automatically send that into Infor and out for approval. So a lot of those non-POs, we can actually begin to have straight through processing on non-POs. So we are constantly working on this product roadmap to consistently keep delivering high quality new lines for our clients. And at this point, we'll go ahead and answer any questions.
Thanks, Mason. Does not appear we have any questions so far. Obviously, if you have any questions afterwards or would like to set up a time to speak, we are more than happy to do that. So please feel free to email us.
Perfect. And talking a little bit about what is coming up at RPI as well. So we do have our Infor HCM Roadmap Festival. So this has been a really, really important item as we are looking to going to HCM or looking to go to CloudSuite, right? Being able to come in and help getting a nice roadmap on how your organization can do this successfully is absolutely critical. So that's what our team is working on more and more, is helping you guys plan these and make sure that your journey onto Infor is going to be the best it can be. So this is going to be hands-on training. We're going to have breakout sessions, nightly activities, and so much more. Come out, meet the team, work with them, and be able to learn about how HCM can impact your organization. And then as well, we also do have our CloudSuite Boot Camp out there in Tampa, Florida. This is the 24th and the 26th of January. So this is going to be just a nice big overview on CloudSuite as a whole, everything along the lines of overall system architecture to ION to user management, everything that your team needs to be successful. So we greatly appreciate you guys taking time out of your day to join us.